Amazing wife revealed a life-changing secret that exposed her millionaire husband's hidden fears. Lisa Thompson had never thought of herself as a detective. But on that bright Saturday morning, as sunlight streamed through the attic window of their Maplewood home, she felt like she'd stumbled upon hidden treasure. The family garage sale was prepped, but the allure of the dusty old ledger beckoned to her. Its cover was frail, a thin layer of dirt barely concealing the stories it held within. With every flip of the yellowed pages, her heart raced. What secrets could Jack be hiding? As she read, disbelief washed over her. Her husband, Jack Thompson, a self-made millionaire with a shining tech empire, had been dedicating chunks of his wealth to support the community center where he grew up. Her soul sang at this revelation, a place filled with values of hard work and community, ideals she held dear. But shock quickly morphed into something deeper. Why hadn't Jack shared this part of himself, this part of their life together? The confrontation loomed heavy in her chest, gnawing at her conscience. When Jack strolled in, his smile was warm, but Lisa could feel the storm brewing beneath her skin. "I found something in the attic," she began, her voice trembling with urgency. When she revealed the ledger, Jack's smile faltered, revealing the hesitation behind his calm facade. "Lisa, let us talk about this later," he stammered, but the words fell flat. The air thickened around them, both knowing that postponing the conversation wouldn't erase the wave of uncertainty rushing toward them. Gradually, the walls began to shake, rattling with resentments and hidden fears. Lisa had always cherished Jack's come-from-nothing story, but now she could sense it, a quiet fear of losing everything he had built. Suddenly, Jack's brother Mark moved in, fresh from a bitter divorce, his judgment like thunder in the distance. Lisa saw the skepticism etched into Mark's features each time Jack's dedication to the community center came up, and the tension in the air grew unbearable. Lisa was caught. Jack's quiet philanthropy was more than an escape, it was a lifeline for families struggling to hold on to their dreams. She felt torn between loyalty toward Jack and an emerging obligation to her community. The night of the charity gala approached, a night meant to celebrate local heroes in philanthropy. As Jack stepped onto the stage, shirt crisp against sweat-dampened palms, a hush fell over the audience. Lisa's heart raced. Would he finally admit his struggles? Would he drown under Mark's relentless pursuit of a perfect image? Jack took a deep breath. "I stand before you not as a millionaire but as a man who wrestles with fear and insecurity." The room hung on his every word, the palpable tension gripping the audience like a vice. Just when it felt as if he'd rise to reveal a profound truth, Mark's voice sliced through the quiet. "Come on, Jack. You're better than this." The crowd gasped, Lisa's heart sank. What would happen next? Would they crumble under weighty expectations, or could they rise against the tides of doubt and emerge stronger? The tension hung thick in the air, leaving everyone clamoring for resolution as an unstoppable wave of uncertainty washed over them. Jack froze, his eyes darting around the room, searching for something to ground him. The sudden interruption from Mark shattered the momentum he was building. Lisa could almost hear the collective breaths being held in the audience. Jack stepped back, as if trying to retreat from the spotlight that was threatening to engulf him. "Mark, I am not just a success story," Jack finally said, his voice tremulous. "I'm a person. You can't just judge me based on the money I've earned." The words stumbled out as he wrestled with his vulnerability, an unfamiliar feeling against the backdrop of his carefully constructed empire. Lisa's heart swelled with pride and dread. Could this be the moment that Jack breaks free from the chains of self-doubt? Might he finally tear down the walls and let the audience see the man behind the mask of wealth? She held her breath as she waited for Mark to respond. Mark leaned forward, eyebrows raised, as if Jack's failure to live up to expectation was an affront to him. "You built this. Own it, man." The impatience in Mark's tone echoed like a clap of thunder, and the audience's murmurs grew mixed with murmurs of curiosity and concern. "Jack," Lisa urged from her seat, her voice barely a whisper, but the warmth of her support radiated to him. "You've got this." A flicker of determination sparked in Jack's eyes. He straightened his posture and cleared his throat, wiping the sweat from his brow. "What I've done doesn't define who I am," he began again, more resolutely this time. "I may look like I have it all, but behind every success was fear of losing everything I built." The room fell silent, even Mark appeared to be taken aback. Jack's voice grew stronger. "I want to give back, not just because I feel guilty but because I remember what it's like to struggle. My success isn't just for me, it's for everyone who still fights to make their dreams a reality." As Jack poured his heart out, the mood in the room began to shift. Hope replaced tension. Lisa felt herself smile, tears of gratitude pressing at her lashes. Maybe this was the breakthrough they both needed. But the release of emotions brought not just clarity, it also pulled the curtain back on a deeper truth that Lisa had yet to confront. Mark's reaction was simmering with resentment, and as Jack spoke, she could feel Mark's eyes on her, as if he were waiting for her reaction, judging her silent support. When Jack finished speaking, the applause was thunderous. But Mark's expression hadn't changed, his lips twisted in something that looked almost like betrayal. "You think people will remember that? They care about the money, Jack. That is all that counts," he said, his voice laced with venom. Jack's face fell, a crack appearing in the newfound strength he had cultivated moments earlier. The crowd's reaction faded, and a chill returned, filling the air with suppressed fears. Lisa stood up, her heart racing. She knew she couldn't let the moment pass. "No. What counts is who we are, not what we have." The words shouted from her lips like a revelation. The crowd switched their attention to her, excitement bubbling to the surface. It was a pivotal moment, but Jack's gaze was still lost, caught between Mark's derision and Hope's embrace. A whisper echoed through her mind, what if this was the spark that ignited a fire, or would it burn them instead? With her heart pounding in her chest, Lisa felt a swelling fear mingled with hope. Would Jack rise to the occasion? Or would he fold under the weight of family expectations, leaving their dreams hanging in the balance? As the applause washed over them, the room felt both electric and loaded. A crossroads awaited them, but which path would they choose? Jack's shoulders sagged, the weight of Mark's words pressing down on him like an anvil. The applause that had ignited his spirit began to turn into a distant echo. A million thoughts raced through his mind, crashing into one another. He looked at Lisa, her eyes burning with an intensity that made his breath hitch. She had taken a stand for him, had urged him to embrace his truth. But now, Mark's scorn felt like a sledgehammer to the clarity he had just begun to grasp. "Jack." Mark shot back, disbelief twisted in his features. "You think sympathy will get us anywhere? People want to see results, not some sob story about fear and struggle." The audience held their breath, tension palpable as if an invisible line had been drawn between the three of them. Jack felt trapped, caught in a whirlwind of emotion and expectation. "Results matter, Mark, but so does authenticity," Lisa interjected, her voice unwavering. "People resonate with honesty. We can't be just a company or a brand." She turned her gaze to the audience, her expression fierce. "Jack isn't just a figure in a magazine. He lives and breathes like everyone else here. Our stories matter." Jack could feel the restless energy shifting toward Lisa, but Mark's stormy eyes were fixed on him. The challenge hung heavy in the air. "Is that what you think?" Mark scoffed. "That they will remember this magic moment you're trying to create? You're the millionaire, not the savior." "I'm more than just a number," Jack said, his voice regaining strength, though still trembling. He stepped forward, shaking off the shadow of Mark's words. I built my success piece by piece, but I can't keep standing on this pedestal while everyone else is simply looking up. I want to help. He looked out at the crowd, finding connections in their gazes, a rush of warmth blossoming in his chest. I want to give back because I know how it feels to struggle. The murmurs grew again, but this time it felt like a wave, a swell of understanding rolling through the audience. Jack could see hope sparking behind their eyes. But Mark, wasn't he going to back down? Help? With what? A handout? Or will it be a sad emotional campaign to win over hearts? People respect strength, Jack, he sneered. When you're low, you either get up and fight or you fall. Which are you? Jack's heart raced. It was the ultimatum that sent shivers down his spine. Fight or fold. In that moment, everything came to a head. His past, his present, and the uncertain future loomed large before him. Jack, look at me, Lisa implored softly. There was urgency and fire in her tone. What do you want to be remembered for? What legacy do you want to leave? Jack closed his eyes, feeling the air thrum with tension. In that heartbeat of silence, he knew the answer. He wanted to be more than a name on the Forbes list. He didn't want to just give money, he needed to connect, to inspire. It was then he realized the truth: vulnerability was strength, not weakness. I want to be known for caring, for making a difference. The words poured out, steady and fierce. He looked directly at Mark. I don't want to be shackled by expectations anymore. But Mark's jaw tightened, everything about him radiating disdain. You're playing with fire, Jack. You think they'll follow you into the flames? Lisa squeezed Jack's hand tightly, an anchor in the storm. Yet he could feel the tremors of doubt beginning again, slicing through the resolve he had built in that moment. What if he lost everything he had ever worked for? What if Mark was right? Would the audience truly support him or see him as a failure torn between dreams? As the tension simmered and Jack's heart pounded fiercely, he wondered, was it too late to turn back? And would he take the leap into the unknown, or would he let fear rule his choices once more? The decision loomed large, a tangled web of hopes and fears waiting to be unraveled. The moment of truth approached. Jack's heart thundered in his chest, each beat echoing the weight of his words. The room hung in the balance. He could feel every gaze piercing him, each one waiting. Waiting for him to decide who he would be, a businessman defined by numbers or a man committed to something greater. What are you going to do? Mark's voice sliced through the silence. You think saying you care will change anything? Jack took a deep breath, the air sharpened with tension. He could feel Lisa's hand squeezing his, her warmth grounding him. She believed in him. He couldn't square the idea of stepping back now, not when he was staring right into the faces of so many people who were longing for hope. I know it won't be easy, but I can't ignore the truth anymore, he declared, the fire igniting inside him. I'm not just here to make money, I'm here to make a difference. I can show that success isn't just about a bank account. It's about lifting others as you rise. A murmur rippled through the audience, like the sound of a tide turning. Jack caught glimpses of nods, whispered conversations punctuated by a tentative laughter. It was a small shift, but it felt like a crack forming in the wall. Mark stepped forward, anger thrumming in his voice. You really think that playing the martyr will win you sympathy? It's naive, Jack. This business is a battlefield. You don't get to declare your vulnerability and expect everyone to rally behind you. Jack smiled, a soft but solid smile. Maybe the battlefield needs a new strategy. Maybe it needs people who care to step forward instead of retreating behind bravado. Mark's expression twisted into a mix of disbelief and contempt, as if Jack had just unveiled some ancient truth that threatened to topple his world. The crowd seemed to lean in, drawn by Jack's passion. Listen, Jack continued, emboldened. We are all humans. We struggle, we stumble. I can't pretend mine doesn't matter. And I refuse to act like it's all just about winning. Life taught me that courage is standing up and admitting when you're afraid. Lisa beamed at him, eyes sparkling with something like pride mixed with relief. In that moment, Jack realized he had crossed a line. He wasn't just fighting Mark, he was fighting for every person in that room who felt small, unworthy, or overlooked. But why should we trust you? Someone from the audience called out, skepticism echoing in their tone. You've had it easy, haven't you? Jack felt the sting but understood it, the hesitation of a world that often felt cast aside. I know it seems that way, he said, his voice steady, but that is why I want to change. I've spent years building my empire, but I've ignored the very people who supported me along the way. Trust isn't given, it's earned through action. I want to earn it. Mark scoffed, arms crossed tightly against his chest. You'll be a laughingstock. They'll turn on you the moment you stumble. Then let them, Jack countered, the conviction rising in his tone. You know what feels worse than failure? Staying silent when you could do something good. The murmurs grew louder now, the energy in the room beginning to shift. Jack felt it, a palpable wave of connection. It was more than just empathy, it was unity. The audience was beginning to see beyond the money and status. Then show us, someone shouted, a beacon of challenge echoing through the crowd. Jack locked eyes with Lisa, their thoughts aligned. He knew this was a beginning, not an end. Let us take this first step together, he called out, the weight of his resolve surrounding him like armor. I'll lead, but I need you all to join me. As the tentative applause started, Jack's heart raced with hope. It felt like a door slowly creaking open, light spilling in from the other side. But in that moment of optimism, doubt prickled at the edges of his happiness. Was he really ready for this leap? Tomorrow, he promised, I'll share what I plan to do. But I need you to believe in it. Believe in me. The audience erupted into a surge of applause, the sound swelling around him like a warm blanket. But as the crowd cheered, Mark's piercing gaze remained fixed on Jack, a storm brewing in his eyes. Jack's heart still questioned whether this newfound momentum would hold, but it was a flame worth chasing. He had opened the door, the real test was yet to come. What awaited him beyond that doorway? As the applause faded, he couldn't help but wonder if the next steps would take him to triumph or back to the shadows of fear he had just begun to flee. The next morning was cloaked in a quiet anticipation. Jack awoke before dawn, his mind swirling with visions of yesterday, every reaction, every challenge. It felt surreal, like a movie where he had stepped into the shoes of the hero. Yet, clarity soon dawned. This wasn't a film, it was his life, and he was standing on the edge of something enormous. As he prepared for his presentation, the scent of coffee filled the air, a comforting start to the day. Lisa leaned against the kitchen counter, her soft smile washing over him like a balm. She could sense his nerves, an edginess that filled the room. Are you ready? She asked, her tone light but her eyes serious. Jack forced a smile, even as self-doubt gnawed at him. I think so. But what if I fail? Then you fail, Jack, she replied, stepping closer, her hand resting on his shoulder. You'll get back up. You always do. Remember, you're learning. His heart raced at her words, a reminder of why he had committed to this change in the first place. When it was finally time, Jack walked into the conference room, filled with faces that had turned from skeptical to curious. The energy crackling in the air felt different today. He stepped up to the podium, heart pounding, and looked around. Thank you for being here again, he began, his voice steady. Yesterday we laid the groundwork for something new, and today, I want to share my vision. He drew in a deep breath, summoning the passion that ignited within him. I want to create a business that prioritizes people over profits. A company where voices matter, where hope becomes a strategy. His words blended into a vivid tapestry of aspirations and emotions. As he spoke of community programs, mentorship opportunities, and sustainable practices, he noticed heads nodding along with every word. The warmth of their hope began to wrap around him, soothing those last remnants of self-doubt. And it starts with honesty, he proclaimed, feeding off their energy. Each of us has struggles. I've lived in the shadows of my own fears, believing that success meant building walls. But look around us. Success isn't measured solely by wealth, it's about lifting those who need it. A quiet floated through the room like a gentle breeze, and Jack caught sight of Mark's glare from the far end. But this time, it didn't intimidate him. In fact, it fueled him, reaffirming his choice to stand open and vulnerable. Together, he said, lowering his voice to draw them in, we can change not just how we do business but how we live our lives. I need your trust to make this happen, and I promise I will not take your faith lightly. Let us support each other through this transition. Let us build a legacy that matters. Will you join me? The silence broke, a collective breath released. Then, a wave of applause surged, stronger than before. Jack's heart soared. This was more than a response, it was a connection, a binding promise. But just as he basked in the momentum, Mark stood. You think you can win them over with dreams? His voice was sharp, a dark cloud looming. You don't know the first thing about sacrifice. You're a millionaire playing at being one of us. The laughter and murmurs shifted to discomfort. Jack felt the room lean back, uncertainty creeping in again. I know I've had privileges that others may not have seen, Jack countered, standing tall, so much was at stake now. But that is exactly why I'm here, to use what I have for others, to listen, to learn. If you want to challenge me, let us open that discussion instead of throwing rocks from the sidelines. His heart hammered, not from fear, but from the fight ignited within him. He would not let Mark's words shift the focus from what truly mattered now. They had the chance to unleash a force of compassion. As applause erupted once more, Jack felt a flicker of uncertainty still lurking, but it dimmed beneath the ponderous weight of purpose. He had to keep going. What would it take to turn this seed of hope into a forest of change? With that thought, he looked out at the crowd, their faces now a blend of excitement and concern. They were on the cusp of change, and Jack was determined not just to lead, but to walk alongside them. But would they really believe in their shared journey? Would they be willing to embrace the radical transformation of not only a business but their lives? The next step loomed like a shadow, waiting to see if he would dare step further into the light. Jack felt a shift in the air, a palpable mix of anticipation and doubt that made the room feel smaller. As eyes bounced back and forth between him and Mark, he knew he had to forge ahead. Glancing at Lisa, he caught her encouraging nod, and he took a deep breath, channeling the energy that had sparked during his speech. Change isn't easy, he said, with a newfound vigor. It takes grit, persistence, and most of all, it takes all of us believing in a better path. He could see a flicker of resolve in some faces, and it fueled his determination. But Mark wouldn't back down. He leaned forward, a smirk on his lips and venom in his eyes. What kind of path are you talking about, Jack? The one paved by fairy tales. Haven't you heard? Reality bites. The laughter that rippled through the crowd felt sharp, like knives cutting through the fragile atmosphere. Jack clenched his fists. This was more than just a presentation, it was a test of character, and he could feel the stakes rising. Reality can indeed sting, Jack replied, trying to keep his voice steady despite the rush of adrenaline. But it also offers lessons. It shows us where we need to grow. He could sense the audience teetering on the edge of a decision. Would they let Mark's cynicism pull them down, or would they choose to embrace the vision he had shared? He had one chance to reach them. Jack stepped away from the podium and paced slowly, making eye contact, seeking connections. Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, I found myself in a room not too different from this one. I had money, prestige, everything society said I needed to be happy, but I was empty inside. Like a hollow shell. A hush fell over the crowd. They leaned in, and he saw the beginnings of empathy forming. I realized, Jack continued, his voice growing stronger, the greatest wealth is in building relationships with those around us. The joy of lifting someone when they're down. That's what fills the void. That's real success. He could see Lisa's pride reflected in her eyes, and it anchored him through the storm brewing before him. You choose every day what kind of person you want to be. Do you want to be a part of a system that consumes or one that empowers? This is our moment. Let us reshape our community and ambition. Mark's expression darkened, and he shot back, words are easy, Jack. But when push comes to shove, are you really ready to make sacrifices? What are you willing to lose? The directness of the challenge hung heavy in the air. Jack's heart raced again, a flicker of doubt threatening to resurface, but he stood firm. I'm ready to take risks. I'm ready to stand for something beyond myself. His eyes swept over the audience. But I can't do it alone. A few heads nodded, slowly at first, but then with greater conviction. He drew in a breath, sensing the shift. The tide was turning, and the embers of hope began to glow again. The applause that erupted was different this time. It was louder, more animated. Jack felt it wash over him, a wave of collective belief that surged through the room. He had touched their hearts. But then, just as the claps filled his ears, Mark spoke again, this time icy and calm. It's easy to inspire when you don't know what is truly at stake. Jack met his gaze, fire igniting behind his resolve. And you, Mark, have no idea how deep this runs for all of us. Don't mistake my optimism for naivety. We're on a brink here, and I want to be silenced. With that, the room quieted again, thick with tension. Jack could feel the eyes of the attendees shifting back to him, the willingness to confront change sparking anew. But he knew they were still at a crossroads. Was this moment just a flash of courage, or would they choose to take the leap together? As silence enveloped him, he stood poised and ready, heart pounding and hope rising, aware that the hardest battles often lay just ahead. Would they step into a future filled with promise, or retreat back into the shadows of doubt? The air crackled with possibility, and Jack could almost hear the question humming through the crowd, what would happen next? Jack could feel the weight of the room, the expectant hush almost choking him. Each second stretched out, and he seized the moment, letting instinct guide him. This was about more than just words, it was about conviction, the kind that could spark fire in hardened hearts. We all felt the struggle, he said, leaning slightly towards the audience, his voice steady. Whether it's financial burdens, personal loss, or feeling isolated in a crowded room, we've been there. But imagine, for a moment, what we could achieve if we synchronized our efforts instead of pushing each other down. He glanced at Lisa, who was focused and attentive, her eyes urging him on. He could almost hear her unspoken encouragement. Jack's gaze swept across the crowd, searching for connections, faces eager for change. We know what true hardship feels like, he continued, a challenge lacing his words. It's not about living in fantasy. I recognize the reality we face every day. So let us cut through the noise. Energies buzzed, he could see people leaning in, their defenses dropping. Mark says it's easy to inspire when you don't know what is at stake. He paused for effect, feeling the moment build. But I do know. I felt the sting of loss, and I know it can drown you. That is why I chose to fight back. That is why I stand before you now. Jack's heart raced as he dove deeper. Each of you has your battles. You've chosen not to be mere spectators in your lives. Empowerment seeped into his words. Let us transform that fight into a collective force, one that lifts us all. A ripple of murmurs stirred through the audience. Some faces began to brighten, and Jack could identify the spark of belief igniting among them. It was that glimmer of recognition that united them all in the room, a feeling they were not alone in this fight. It felt palpable, alive like a heartbeat. Mark's expression had changed slightly, a flicker of unease crossing his features. Jack pressed on. What would it feel like to stand together, to share our struggles openly without fear? Think about how that can redefine our futures. We owe it to ourselves to try. To lean on each other. This time, a few people in the front row nodded in agreement, some even murmured affirmations. The tighter knot in Jack's chest began to loosen, replaced by a swell of hope and passion. Then, as he stood there, fueled by the momentum, Mark shot back, anger etching his features. You think it's that easy, don't you? Just hold hands and sing songs? Talk is cheap, Jack. Some of us have real lives to consider. Real lives? Jack retorted, letting frustration seep into his tone. What is real is the connection we can forge. What is real is choosing to make life better for ourselves and each other. A hushed surprise swept through the crowd at his boldness. Jack could see eyes shifting again, not just at him but to one another, as if the wall Mark had built around them was beginning to crack. It filled him with a sense of urgency. Relationships aren't just nice to have, they are life-giving. He continued, voice ringing through the silence. We can bind together. We can focus our strengths and rise. But we must start now. We must be willing to confront our fears head-on. The atmosphere charged around him, a growing storm of possibility swirling in the room. And then, without warning, someone stood up from the back, a woman he vaguely recognized, her eyes filled with unshed tears. I'm scared, Jack. What if we don't know how? Her vulnerability disarmed the crowd. They nodded, sharing unspoken stories of doubt and fear, questioning everything that had been laid out before them. Jack took a deep breath, feeling the moment as it expanded, full of potential. Then we'll learn together. We'll find out what that looks like, he said softly, reaching out. We don't have to have all the answers now, but we will find them together. Just as hope flickered in the air, Mark cut back in, smirking. You think that is going to cut it? Just saying we should try. Jack felt a surge of urgency. Mark, this isn't about what we say, it's what we are willing to do. Next. I don't want to just talk. I want action. The world is waiting for us to take that leap. The silence in the room felt thick as everyone held their breath, the weight of Jack's declaration hanging like a pendulum. But in that vulnerable moment, Jack was acutely aware that the clearest path could be hidden right in front of him. What if they didn't leap together? What if the leap fractured their community instead of solidifying it? And with that uncertainty racing through him, he was left with one burning question: could they unearth the courage to face their fears and transform them into action? The crowd stilled, a charged silence washing over everyone like a wave. Jack could feel it in his bones, the uncertainty, the doubt lingering in the air. It wasn't just about him anymore. He had shifted gears from speaker to the pulse of a collective heartbeat, and he had to respond. Look, he said, breaking the tension. I get it. Change is terrifying. It means stepping into the unknown. But consider this: what is scarier? Taking that leap, or staying stuck in a cycle that leaves us defeated? His words rolled through the room, a drumbeat urging them to think, to feel. A flicker of recognition passed across faces, the realization settling in. And just like that, Mark's defensive armor visibly shifted. Jack could see that beneath the bravado, there were cracks, moments of hesitance, moments of vulnerability creeping into the corners of his clenched demeanor. What if we hold each other accountable? Jack added, voice steady. What if this isn't just a gathering? What if we create a support system? A real network where we commit to facing our fears together? At that, Jack noticed Lisa stand at the edge of her seat, her eyes shimmering with possibility. I'm in, she said, her voice clear and resonant. I felt the weight of this for too long and I want change. Not just for me, but for everyone. A ripple of murmurs spread like wildfire through the audience, each person exchanging glances, nodding in agreement. Jack felt a surge of energy, a collective yearning for transformation blossoming before him. Then, he turned to address Mark directly. You can choose to hold us back, or you can join us. I know you're not just some cynical voice. There is a part of you that wants this too. That challenge hung in the air, undeniable, forcing attention on Mark. Everyone followed his gaze, holding their breath in unison. Mark's face looked strained, but the shadows of uncertainty were battling with something deeper. Beneath his hard exterior, Jack sensed a silent struggle, a man wrestling with his insecurities, his fears of inadequacy. Finally, Mark's shoulders dropped slightly. You really think we can change things? He asked, a trace of vulnerability threading through his question. His voice was quieter now, more human. Yes, Jack replied, leaning forward. Together, we can ignite something real. We just have to commit. It won't be easy, but if we don't try, what will we lose? Time. Connection. Hope. A murmur of agreement rose around the room, building momentum like a wave ready to crash. Each person was weighing their lives, their reservations, and the risk of taking a step forward. Oh, I'll give it a try, Mark finally conceded, his voice low, full of uncertainty and reluctance. But only if we are accountable. No more empty promises, it has to mean something. Cheers erupted, filling the space with a sense of victory, but Jack's heart raced too fast. This was only the beginning. He sensed that the hardest work was yet to come. That one promise could go awry, or it could take root and create change that resonated far larger than any of them imagined. But as excitement crackled in the air, Jack felt that old fear creep back in. What if they faltered? What if the bonds they were trying to forge fell apart before they ever had a chance to bloom? With a knot tightening in his stomach, he posed one final thought: what happens when we face our fears together? What if it leads to something beyond our wildest dreams? And as the words hung there, Jack wondered, too, could they grasp the courage needed to confront not just the struggles of their lives, but the shadows lurking in their hearts? The energy in the room felt electric, buzzing with a mixture of hope and trepidation. As the applause faded, the faces of the crowd didn't look like a group of strangers anymore. They were a mosaic of shared aspirations and hidden fears. Jack scanned the room, noticing the subtle shifts in expression. This was their moment, a step into the unknown together. All right, Jack exclaimed, clapping his hands together. Let us get practical. What do we need to start forming this network of support? The audience seemed to come alive again, exchanging ideas with wild enthusiasm. Looked like ideas were swirling like leaves in the wind. Lisa was up first, her eyes ablaze with an inner fire. We could set up a weekly meeting somewhere informal, like a coffee shop or a park. Just a place to check in and share our struggles. Or a group chat, suggested someone from the back. Just to keep each other motivated throughout the week. Mark nodded slowly, the initial tension easing in his shoulders. Yeah, I can do that. He sounded a bit more convinced now, his voice carrying the seeds of potential. Jack felt a wave of relief wash over him, but it was short-lived. The weight of the responsibility started to settle back in. How could he ensure this didn't slip through their fingers? At that moment, he realized he couldn't do it alone. They were going to need more than just words, they needed a leader. "Here's what I propose," Jack said, stepping forward. "Let us choose a core group, 5 or 6 people who want to lead this initiative. We can create structure, give it form. Who wants to volunteer?" A hesitant silence swept through the room, the gravity of the proposal sinking in. Jack could feel the pulse of hesitation, but then Lisa shot her hand up again. "I'll do it. I want to help." That act of courage sparked others. One by one, people began to raise their hands. Each gesture felt like a small beacon of light, pushing back fear. Eventually, they had a handful of volunteers, each ready to transform their words into action. As excitement crested in their little circle, Jack felt something shift in him too. The weight on his shoulders didn't feel so heavy anymore. This wasn't just him carrying the burden, it was the whole community moving forward together. "Let us set a date for our first meetup then," Jack said, invigorated by their responses. "And I'll put together a layout of what we can do moving forward. Let us start with a mission statement, something that captures what we want from this journey." The discussions turned into a flurry of ideas, each person contributing their thoughts, vibrant and eager. Yet, amidst the buzz, Jack felt another edge of doubt. What if they were just chasing an illusion? A bubble waiting to burst? As the session closed, and people started to disperse, Jack caught Mark lingering at the back. The energy of anxiety still clouded his features, a mere flicker behind the fire of hope. "Mark," Jack called out, motioning him over. "How are you feeling about all this?" "I don't know," Mark replied, rubbing the back of his neck. "I mean, I've been skeptical for so long. What if I fail again?" "You won't be alone. We're in this together," Jack reassured, placing a hand on Mark's shoulder. "But we need to confront those fears head-on." "You worried?" Mark's eyes were troubled, drifting away for a moment as if he was seeing something far beyond the room. "It's just I've failed before. How do I know this isn't just another wild idea?" Jack could feel the pain behind those words. "Because this time, we're all committing to it. No more letting each other down. Together, we'll hold each other accountable." As they locked eyes, Jack felt that familiar twist in his gut, mixing hope and fear. Would they truly be able to support one another? And just then, as the last few people filtered out of the hall, Jack made a quiet vow. He would do everything he could to ensure this wasn't just another fleeting moment. But as those thoughts raced through his mind, the loud crack of thunder startled the silence outside. Rain began to pour, fierce and relentless, a storm brewing just beyond the safety of their gathering. Was that an omen? Or a challenge from nature, echoing their own fears? Jack's heart raced again. Could they weather the storm together? Or would they flee, like leaves caught in the wind? As the rain pattered against the window, Jack stood before the remnants of the meeting, a mix of exhilaration and anxiety swelling within him. The path of uncertain promises stretched ahead, and the weight of potential felt both thrilling and terrifying. He wanted this to last, to mean something deeper than fleeting words tossed in the air. "Hey," Lisa's voice broke through his reverie as she approached, a reassuring smile lighting up her face. "You did amazing today. They believe in you." Jack chuckled, more nervous than confident. "Did they? Or were they just swept up in the moment?" "Both," she replied, a glint in her eye. "You planted the seed. Now we water it." The truth settled in, wrapping around Jack like a warm embrace. This was real. He had shared his fears, opened his heart, and in return, others had echoed their own. The connections had begun to form. But a whisper of doubt crawled back into his mind. What if it was just a storm in a teacup? The days turned into weeks, with the community meetings blossoming in unexpected ways. Jack led with passion, not shying from vulnerability, and people began to open up, share their stories, the joys and the pain alike. Each conversation echoed with sincerity. The floodgates had opened, creating a vibrant tapestry of unity. Yet, shadows still flickered in the background. Mark, while supportive, wrestled visibly with his own insecurities, frequently questioning the momentum that Jack had built. Their differences were stark. Mark's skepticism stood in contrast to Jack's hope. It threatened to create a fracture in the newly formed surface of trust. One evening, as the group lingered after yet another successful meeting, Mark approached Jack directly. "You're really diving headfirst into this, huh?" "Yeah," Jack replied, a mix of enthusiasm and caution in his tone. "This matters, Mark. We're building something great here." "That's what worries me," he admitted, a weariness underlying his words. "What if we fail?" Jack felt the dull ache of those words, an all too familiar fear. "Then we learn and adjust. But we can't let the fear of failure stop us from trying." "Easy for you to say. It's easier to be optimistic when you've been riding high," Mark countered, but his voice lacked bite. Jack took a breath, feeling the gravity of their conversation. "I get it. Trust me. It's a risk. But isn't this what we all wanted? A chance to be something better?" Mark's eyes softened slightly, as if Jack's earnestness had pierced through the haze. "I want it to work, but I also want to be sure we're not setting ourselves up for another fall." "Then let us all commit to holding each other accountable," Jack suggested. "No blame game, just a promise to each other to keep pushing through." For a moment, they stood in silence, the weight of their words hanging like thick fog. But deep down, Jack knew that feeling tethered would bring them closer together. And then it happened. A month later, as they hosted their first community project, a food drive, Jack stood before a bustling crowd. Faces he had seen in meetings now sparkled with excitement as they worked together for a common cause. The atmosphere pulsed with life, laughter, and warmth. This was the dream in motion, and he embraced the surge of strength in their unity. But shadows still lurked. As they gathered supplies, Mark's skepticism whispered its doubts in Jack's ear. Just then, a mother approached, bundled in a warm coat, tears glistening in her eyes. "Thank you, seriously, you have no idea what this means to my family," she said, voice trembling with emotion. Jack felt a rush. "It means everything to know we're making a difference." In that moment between acknowledging his purpose and the palpable connection to this woman, the self-doubt began to dissipate. Later, when the food drive ended, the buzz of accomplishment mingled with an electric energy. They had not only filled pantry shelves but also ignited a sense of community rarely felt in Maplewood. And just like that, Mark pulled Jack aside, a hint of realization in his eyes. I see what you mean now. It feels good to be a part of this." Jack chuckled, feeling the last vestiges of unyielding tension dissolve. "Feels amazing, right? We're making this happen together." "Together," Mark echoed, the most genuine smile breaking on his face. Hope blossomed in Jack's heart, coursing through him with energy. They were standing on the precipice of something beautiful, a community reborn from fear and hesitation. Looking around at all the people invested, the laughter echoing from families reunited, Jack understood. It wasn't about individual victories anymore, it was about every person choosing to join in, every doubt met with support, and every fear faced hand in hand with a community that thrived on care. As the evening sun dipped below the horizon, painting Maplewood in a golden hue, Jack knew one truth: they had faced the storms together. There would be more challenges ahead. But here, amongst friends and family, they were ready to embrace them all. With a smile stretching across his face, he grasped the joy of transformation. Life was, after all, a lush journey, tightly woven with threads of vulnerability and strength. This was just the beginning. And the invitation echoed louder than ever: together, they would find their way through anything. Now, dear friends, this is the moment to remember your support. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep our community growing. Share your reactions and feelings about this journey in the comments. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your support matters.